Shalom everyone. In this video I would like to discuss only one scripture in chapter 1 of Leviticus that really had me thinking, asking questions. I brought my question to fellow Torah observant believers and rabbis and teachers alike, but all gave me the same answers, so I would like to look at it with my family on YouTube. So in Leviticus 1 verse 11 it reads, "And he shall kill it on the side of the altar, northward before the Most High. And the priest Aaron's sons shall sprinkle his blood round about the altar." So at the beginning of the chapter, in verse 2 and 3, it starts off saying, "If any man brings an offering." So we know in chapter 1 is going to be about the offering and bringing an offering to the Most High. And it says the different types of offering that he is accepting is of the herd and of the lamb. But that part was funny to me because I was like, an offering? Don't they give offering in churches? But they always asking for money. How come they never ask for lamb or for the herd? But I digress. So as it continues on in verse 3 and 4, it starts talking about the burnt sacrifice of the herd. And it says, "Let them offer a male without blemish, and he shall offer of his own voluntary at the door of the tabernacle." Alright, and so in verse 4, it says, "And he shall put his hand upon the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be acceptable for him to make an atonement for him." So, my question is, in verse 11, was there no requirement for the lamb when you lay hands on him? Let's go straight to the Septuagint. In the Septuagint, in Leviticus 1, in verse 11, it reads, "And he shall lay his hand on its head, and they shall kill it by the side of the altar toward the north before the Most High, and the sons of Aaron the priest shall pour its blood on the altar round about." So what sticks out to me here is that in the Septuagint it says that he shall lay his hand on his head. But in the Hebrew text, it doesn't say that he shall lay his hand on his head. So I brought this to fellow believers, and they say that what's done for the herd is also supposed to automatically be done for the sheep or for the lamb. And they say that even when the Septuagint was being written, that some things were just understood by the people. That what they did for the herd automatically meant the same thing for the sheep. But for me, my mind was like, it doesn't say it. The Most High is always always on point with what he wants done with everything. So let's look at this. We'll go to Exodus 29. This is the portion of the hallowing or the sanctifying or the setting apart of Aaron's sons. And what they do is they have to go through this whole ritual of 7 days and all of these different set apart things for the priest. So we're at verse 10 when it gets to the sacrifices. And it's seemingly the same way that it's done in Leviticus. This seems to be the first time that it's even spoken of. In verse 10 it reads, "And thou shalt cause a bullock to be brought before the tabernacle of the congregation, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands upon the head of the bullock. And thou shalt kill the bullock before the Most High by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation." So that seems the same as in Leviticus 1 verse 4. Then when we go down to verse 15, this is what it says. "And thou shalt also take one ram, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands upon the head of the ram. And thou shalt slay the ram, and thou shalt take his blood and sprinkle it round about the altar." And you go to verse 19, and it says the same thing for the other ram. "And thou shalt take the other ram And Aaron and his sons shall put their hands on his head, upon the head of the ram, and thou shalt kill the ram, and take his blood, and put it on the tip of the right ear of Aaron, and upon the right ear of his sons. And it continues. Now, I do feel that it's important to explain that certain portions of the priestly law may not be applicable for today, at least for the physical temple. This is not including the fleshly temple that is talked about on the Brit, and the daily sacrifice of ourselves that we're supposed to give, which is our life. Which leads me to one of my main thoughts in Leviticus 16, which speaks of the Day of Atonement. Now, I was wondering, I was seeing a connection between the two, and was wondering why in Leviticus 1 they're not laying their hand on the head of the lamb. It seems that part is missing for whatever reason. But let's look at it in Leviticus 16 and verse 21. And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat, and confess over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions, and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send him away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness. And the goat shall bear upon him all their iniquities unto a land not inhabited, and he shall let go the goat in the wilderness. So there seemed like, for me, if this is an offering, it seemed like there is a repetitious thing of the laying on of hands, and this is the reason why there is a laying on of the hands to these animals, because it is the atonement. It is putting the sins of the people or the sins of yourself onto this goat. Is a transference of sin to the animal. Another example of a transference of sin, or being a part of, or witnessing sin, is in Leviticus 24:13 through 15. And the Most High spoke unto Moses, saying, Bring forth him that hath cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, Whosoever curseth his mighty one shall bear his sin. So we see here once again these people who are witnessing, or that I guess was a part of this person's sin. They laid their hands on him as a witness, or as saying, yeah, this is the sin that is upon him. And the guy was stoned. So two things that I had noticed that I didn't notice before when I was looking into this is a situation in 2 Samuel where Tamar was taken advantage of by her brother. And she was grieved because he sent her away after having relations with her. So we'll go to 2 Samuel 13 and 19, and it reads, And Tamar put ashes on her head, and rent her garments of diverse colors that was on her, and laid her hand on her head, and went away. The reason why I would say or see that she laid her hand on her head and ran away is because of the sin that is now upon her. She sinned, but not screaming out or yelling out when her brother was taking advantage of her. The law says that if that happens, in order for the woman not to also be caught in that situation, she has to call out. And since she didn't, her sin was upon herself. So she put her hand on her head. So the last scripture is in Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 36. So this is to Israel at least to that generation, because they are prideful and trusting in man rather than trusting in the Most High and returning to the Most High. And it reads, "Why gaddest thou about so much to change thy way? Thou also shalt be ashamed of Egypt, as thou wast ashamed of Assyria. Yea, thou shalt go forth from him with thine hands upon thine head, for the Most High have rejected thy confidences, and thou shalt not prosper in them." So going off with your hand on your head is not only as a shame, but to show that your sin is upon you. One thing that I was thinking of is in the Christian church, they often go around laying hands on each other. Now, if the person is very sinful themselves, or if this pastor has lust, or they have these different issues, and this person that he's laying his hand on, what he's doing, which is also why no one should lay their hands on anyone else, is because they're releasing their sins onto other people, which is why most people end up being more jacked up whenever they go to uh, other congregations, or when they go to anywhere really outside of just being in the scriptures for themselves, because there's that impartation that is given by laying on of the hands on a head of a person or of an animal. As we can see, it's usually to imply a sin. So once again, this is for Leviticus 1 in verse 11. My question is, why is there no laying on the hands of this lamb when it's seen in Exodus 29, when it's seen in Leviticus 16, and in Leviticus 24? Alright guys, leave a comment, like, share, let me know what you think. Shalom.